Have you ever considered how the purpose of a major conflict can fundamentally shift, like right in the middle of it,
Hmm.
redefining not just the fight itself, but maybe even the core ideals a nation stands for?
It's a fascinating
It
question.
really is. Because, during America's biggest crisis, the Civil War, this exact thing happened. So
Yeah.
today we're diving deep into Abraham Lincoln's leadership,
hmm
specifically how his big decisions, think the Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, how they didn't just uh, manage the war, but actually transformed its goals. And in doing that, kind of reshapes America's whole identity.
That's exactly it. Our mission today really is to unpack how Lincoln managed this. I mean, a nation in total crisis.
Right.
And he steers the Union fight from just, keeping the country together to tackling the huge moral issue of slavery. And by doing that, he offered, as he put it, a new birth of freedom for everyone.
A new birth of freedom. Powerful.
We'll be looking at the strategy, sure, but also the moral conviction behind it all.
And we're using some really rich historical sources for this, looking at Lincoln's wartime leadership, its impact. We want to find those maybe surprising details that sometimes get glossed over.
Yeah, get beyond the headlines.
Okay, so let's go back. Spring 1861. War breaks out.
Hmm.
For Lincoln, for most people in the Union, the main goal, crystal clear, save the Union.
Absolutely.
It was seen as this constitutional fight, right? Just hold the states together. Lincoln himself, in his first inaugural address, said, "I have no purpose to interfere with the institution of slavery where it already existed."
Yeah.
That was the starting point.
And that initial position is so important for understanding just how radical the later shift was. His first duty, as he saw it, preserve national unity, uphold the Constitution.
Keep the house from collapsing.
Precisely. He believed the Union was permanent. No state could just leave. So the war initially was about proving that a democracy conceived in liberty could survive this fundamental challenge.
That sounds like a tightrope walk.
Oh, incredibly precarious. He was terrified of losing the border states, Kentucky, Maryland, Missouri, Delaware, slave states, but loyal.
Right, if they flipped.
It would have been catastrophic. So attacking slavery directly, too early, that could have pushed them right into the Confederacy's arms. Huge risk.
Okay, so if preserving the Union was the number one, almost the only goal at the start,
Hmm.
what started pushing things? What were the pressures, the moments that nudged Lincoln towards something, well, bigger, more moral?
Yeah, how did we get from save the Union to something else?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that shift, because it acknowledges that contradiction right at the heart of America's founding, doesn't it?
Well, honestly, the war itself was a powerful teacher, a brutal one. As it dragged on, casualties just kept mounting. That early hope for a quick win, it faded. And just preserving the Union started to feel maybe not enough for some people.
Especially with the cost.
Exactly. Abolitionists up north got louder. They argued you couldn't truly win or honor the nation's principles if slavery continued. Plus, you had the practical stuff happening on the ground.
Like what?
As Union armies pushed south, thousands of enslaved people started escaping, fleeing to Union lines, seeking freedom.
Right, the contrabands.
Yes, and suddenly the Union Army has this huge logistical challenge, but also a moral one. These people were effectively voting with their feet, forcing the issue of slavery forward, whether Lincoln planned it that way initially or not.
So the reality on the ground was changing the conversation.
Definitely. And that leads us to a really pivotal moment, a key turning point.
The Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just like a sudden decision, was it? He'd been mulling it over for months.
Oh, absolutely. He'd even drafted preliminary versions earlier. What's so fascinating is how it worked on so many levels at once. Strategically, militarily, it was brilliant.
How so?
By declaring enslaved people in the Confederate States free, it directly encouraged them to leave plantations, which, hit the Southern economy hard. Their whole labor system started to unravel.
So it weakened the South from within.
Massively. Imagine their main workforce just walking away. Estimates suggest almost 500,000 escaped to Union lines by the war's end. That's a huge drain. And many didn't just run, they actively helped the Union. Some even took up arms against their former enslavers.
Wow. So it's not just taking away the South's labor, it's adding strength to the Union side, turning a perceived problem into a source of power.
Exactly. But beyond the military angle, which was crucial, it was also this incredibly powerful moral statement.
Okay, tell me about that. How did it shift the sort of moral high ground?
It basically announced to the world, and maybe more importantly to Americans themselves, what this fight was really about now. Before the proclamation, you could see it as just you know, putting down a rebellion, a political squabble.
Oh, wow.
Lincoln's declaration turned it into a fight against slavery, a moral crusade that instantly raised the stakes. It gave the Union a moral authority it hadn't quite had before. Victory now meant not just reunion, but human freedom.
And that had ripples internationally, didn't it? I remember reading it basically killed any chance of European support for the Confederacy.
Oh, absolutely critical. And yeah, often overlooked. Britain, France, they'd been thinking about recognizing the Confederacy.
Which would have been disastrous for the Union.
Totally. They needed Southern cotton, sure, and some elites sympathized with the Southern planters. But, and this is key, by 1863, Britain and France had already abolished slavery themselves. Britain way back in 1833.
Huh.
So for them to officially back a nation founded on protecting slavery, it would have been a PR nightmare, politically toxic. The Emancipation Proclamation made it almost impossible. Supporting the Confederacy meant supporting slavery, full stop. Their own people wouldn't stand for it.
So it really boxed them in, made Britain, as you put it, twitchy.
Exactly. It effectively shut down any serious talk of intervention.
Now, we should probably clarify, though. The proclamation had limits. People sometimes forget this. It didn't actually free all enslaved people, right?
That's a really important nuance. You're right.
It only applied to states in rebellion. Places where technically the Union had no real authority at that moment.
Correct. He had no de facto power there to enforce it immediately.
And it specifically didn't apply to the border states, the loyal slave states.
Which shows he was still walking that political tightrope. He desperately needed their loyalty, didn't want to push them away.
So how do we square those limitations with its massive impact?
Well, even though he couldn't enforce it everywhere instantly, by declaring those in Confederate territory free, he gave them a legal and moral right to claim that freedom. And it gave Union soldiers a new mission to make that freedom real as they advanced. The fact he didn't free those in the border states, that just highlights the immense political pressure he was under. But despite all that, the proclamation unquestionably shifted the war's central focus. It now included ending slavery. It changed the whole character of the conflict.
It wasn't just about law anymore.
No, it was about liberty. It gave the Union cause this undeniable moral force, galvanized support at home, and, crucially, abroad.
And that shift connects directly to the next point, the role of African Americans in the Union Army itself. This wasn't just about people escaping. It was about them actively joining the fight.
Yes, a direct and profound consequence. And this further hammered the Confederacy, not just losing labor, but seeing that labor turn into armed opposition.
Strengthening the Union's ranks.
Massively. After the proclamation, the Union officially started recruiting black soldiers. By the end of the war, you have over 180,000 African Americans serving in the Army and Navy.
Wow, 180,000.
Yeah, about 10% of the total Union forces. Many were formerly enslaved. And their commitment, absolutely incredible, often fighting with amazing bravery, despite facing discrimination within the Army and, the extra danger of execution if captured by Confederates.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Units like the 1st South Carolina Volunteer Infantry, mostly formerly enslaved men, showed incredible courage early on. They directly challenged all those racist ideas about whether black men could or would fight effectively.
And it wasn't only soldiers on the front lines, right? There were other crucial roles.
Absolutely. Think about someone like Susie King Taylor. She escaped slavery, then worked as a laundress, teacher, and nurse for that same 1st South Carolina Regiment.
Amazing.
She taught soldiers to read and write, cared for the sick and wounded, just invaluable support. These contributions, both on and off the battlefield, were vital. Their courage, like at Fort Wagner with the 54th Massachusetts.
That famous assault.
Right. Incredible bravery, terrible losses. But it didn't just boost Union numbers, it smashed stereotypes. It became this powerful symbol of what the war was now about. They were fighting for their own freedom, their people's future, that dedication. It really helped sway public opinion in the North.
Okay, so we have the proclamation changing the war's purpose, the direct involvement of African American soldiers proving their commitment. Then, just a few months later, November 1863, after the single bloodiest battle on American soil.
Gettysburg.
We get another huge moment, another reframing, the Gettysburg Address. After all that devastation, how did Lincoln manage to give a speech that wasn't just about mourning, but about, well, a new American identity? This is where it gets really interesting for me.
It's incredible, isn't it? The setting was so grim, thousands dead or wounded. The main speaker that day, Edward Everett, he spoke for 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah, Lincoln followed him with maybe 272 words. 2 minutes. max.
And yet,
And yet, it's one of the most powerful speeches ever given. In those few words, Lincoln connects the struggle, the sacrifice at Gettysburg, directly to America's founding ideals. But he does it in a really specific way.
how do you mean?
He frames the fight against slavery not as some secondary goal, but as the fulfillment of those founding ideals, the Declaration of Independence kind of ideals.
He starts with 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Referencing 1776.
Exactly. Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He skips right over the Constitution in a way and goes straight to the Declaration.
Well, why is that significant?
Because by invoking the Declaration and all men are created equal, he subtly but powerfully reframes everything. He suggests the Civil War is testing whether that kind of nation, one founded on liberty and equality, can actually survive its own internal contradictions, like slavery.
So it's not just about saving the Union as it was.
No, it's about saving it and perfecting it. Making those founding ideals actually apply to everyone, regardless of race. It lifts the focus from what the founders maybe intended back then to a living, breathing ideal of equality that the nation needed to strive for now.
And it builds to that famous ending, the new birth of freedom, and that line about government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. What did that new birth of freedom really mean in that context?
It wasn't just about going back. It was about moving forward, expanding the promise. It meant dedicating the nation, because of the sacrifices made at Gettysburg and elsewhere, to achieving racial equality, to building a more just, more inclusive country.
A recommitment almost.
A profound recommitment. It was a vision that resonated far beyond the battlefield. It gave hope, especially to African Americans, and a deeper meaning to the Union cause. So, the Gettysburg Address, it locked in both the moral and political reasons for fighting. Preserve the Union, yes, but also end slavery. A unified, powerful purpose.
The war was now undeniably about human dignity and the true definition of American freedom.
So when you put it all together,
Yeah.
looking back at Lincoln's leadership, it's just so clear he wasn't just, managing a war effort.
Not at all.
He fundamentally redefined what the war was for. And in doing that, changed the country's understanding of itself, its core ideals.
Oh, boy.
He took this fight about preserving the political structure
A constitutional crisis.
and elevated it, made it about fundamental human rights, about creating a more perfect union, truly.
And this deep dive, I think, it really shows us how a nation's ideals aren't set in stone, are they? They're dynamic. They get shaped by crisis, by struggle, and they get articulated, sometimes totally redefined by leadership.
Visionary leadership.
Yes. Lincoln's ability to shape that vision, to articulate it so powerfully, even in the middle of all that horror, it speaks volumes about the power of words, of moral conviction in times of crisis. Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do these big shifts in national purpose, spelled out in moments like these,
Yeah.
how do they not only change history right then, but keep inspiring future generations, keep pushing them to live up to those redefined ideals? That's a question for you, our listener, to think about.
Absolutely. I mean, the core insight here seems to be that Lincoln's leadership wasn't just about winning. It was about using the crisis of war to reshape the nation's moral and political soul, moving it closer to those stated democratic ideals, however imperfectly.
It's an incredible story of evolution under pressure, how a leader can redirect a nation toward, hopefully, a more just path.
Yeah, it really is.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to take away. Can you think of other moments, maybe in history, maybe even closer to home, in our own times, where a leader or maybe a movement had a similar impact just by clearly stating a new purpose? Or by reframing old ideals in a new light? And how do those new definitions, those new purposes, become lasting forces for change? How do they make us all re-examine what we truly stand for?